Welcome pre-algebra. Today we are in lesson 38 and we're going to talk about rectangular coordinates. So here we've got two number lines. We've got what we are used to seeing, which is the regular horizontal number line. We call that the x-axis. And then we have another number line that crosses directly on the zero of the x-axis and it goes vertically. So it's like we made a copy of the x-axis and we rotated it at the zero, at the origin, 90 degrees. And so now we have an up and down number line and a left and right number line. The axis that's up and down we call the y-axis. This is called a rectangular coordinate system or a Cartesian, and I'm going to spell that for you, Cartesian, C-A-R-T-E-S-I-A-N, coordinate. Now it is coordinate because there are two locations, and an ordinates is a location. So we've got two coordinates, or two ordinates here. So Cartesian coordinate system. And basically this is like, think of like a radar. Like if you've ever seen a radar on a TV show where it swoops around, right? That's what this is. Now if we were to go all the way around, this would be what we consider 360 degrees, like the 360 degrees of a circle. Right? We know that that's what it would be. So if we took a circle and we divided it at the diameter here and another diameter, we would get these four right angles right in the middle. We'd get it in perpendicular lines. So likewise, we know those are 90 degrees. So likewise, each one of these is worth 90 degrees. These angles that are made by the x-axis and the y-axis. Now, the way we locate or identify the points on the Cartesian coordinate system is by quadrants. And we start with the positive side of the x-axis right here. And we start in this quadrant. And the reason we do that is because you know how we like to deal with positive numbers? Well, everything in this quadrant, the numbers on the x-axis, those are positive, and the numbers on the y-axis are positive. So we call this a positive quadrant. It is the first quadrant, okay? And that's supposed to be a Q, not a G. This is the first quadrant. All right. And the coordinates in a quadrant have two, like we said, two locations. They have a location on the x-axis and they have a location on the y-axis. And we always list the location on the x-axis first. So x and then y. So for instance, something in the positive first quadrant, if I were to give you two numbers here, let's say I was to give you 3 and 4. That would be my coordinate. I would look at this first number and know that it's the x, and I would look on the x-axis and find the 3. And then the second number would be the y value, and that would be the 4. So I would look for the 3 on the x-axis, and then I would look to see where it crosses the line for the 4 on the y-axis, and I would make a dot there to note the location of that coordinate. This is a coordinate, and it's always x first, y second. Always, always, always. So when you write your coordinate in Jupyter, always remember the x comes first and the y comes second. And if it is in this quadrant, it's going to be a positive x and a positive y. That's why it's a positive. And the reason for that is because you have the positive side of the x-axis, or the number line, and the positive side of the y-axis, or the vertical number line. So everything on this side is positive, positive. Now on this side, if you notice, the x-axis is negative. So our first number is always going to be negative, but our y-axis is still positive. So this is going to be negative, positive. Any coordinate that you see that is negative, positive is going to be in what we call the second quadrant. All right. So, for instance, if I were to give you -3, +4, that would be a negative, positive, and it would be in the second quadrant. So I would go to the -3 on the x-axis and up to the +4 on the y-axis, and I would make my point there. Excuse me. So this would be that point, -3, +4. Moving on to this, but right below that, we have the negative x-axis, just like we've already talked about. But we also have the negative half of the y-axis. So it's going to be a negative, negative. All right, all of your points here are negative, negative. So if I were to give you the point -3, -4, these are both negative, negative. So they would both be in the, what we call, third quadrant. All right, and so that would be -3 on the x-axis and a -4 on the y-axis. So that point would go right here. Okay, and then our fourth and final quadrant, this is the fourth quadrant. And it is where you have a positive x and a negative y. And if you notice, the quadrants across from each other have opposite signs. So we have positive, positive here. We have negative, negative here. Over here we have a negative y, or a negative x, positive y. Over here we have a positive x, negative y. So in this quadrant, if I were to give you a +3, -4, that would be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so that'd be, I'd find the +3 on the x-axis, and I'd come down to the -4 right across from it, and I would put my point right there. Now, one of the easy ways to remember what the quadrants are, or how to name first, second, third, fourth, is to draw the letter C. When you do that, you start in the first quadrant. So first, second, third, fourth. So because you started here with the letter C, and it's the letter C for Cartesian coordinate, the letter C here tells you where to start with the first one, and then you just count around as you go. First, second, third, fourth. Now, I don't know if that's what they did on purpose, but I do know that it works very well to remember how to number the quadrants. Start with 1 and work your way around to when then the next one is the third one, and the last one you end in is the fourth one. So using the letter C to help you remember the order that they're numbered in works quite well. All right, I'm going to take that off for just a moment. I'm just going to put it smaller right here. There we go. So start in the first, move through the second, third, and end in the fourth. All right, so that is the Cartesian coordinate system. All right, I'm going to erase everything except the number line, so give me just a second. I can actually use my eraser at this point. I'm going to take all of this off. You hear my dog barking in the background. He's so noisy tonight. All right, so we're going to do example 38.1. And it says that there are 4 points graphed on the system. And I'm going to put those in for you right now. So here's a point. And then here is a point. Here is a point. And then here is a point. And what we're going to do is we're going to label each one of these points with their appropriate coordinates. And that is the x first and then the y. So I'm going to draw my parenthesis next to it, and I'm going to find the x. I'm just going to go down until I see the x, and that is a 3. It's a positive 3. So I'm going to write positive 3, and I'm going to put my comma, and now I'm going to find the y value for this point, and that's the vertical. So that's a 4. So then that would be a 4, a positive 4, just like that. So the coordinates for this point are 3, 4. Right now, let's find, this was in the first quadrant. So let's look at the one in the second quadrant here. So I'm going to go ahead and make my parenthesis, because this is the way we write it. And this point, the x value on the horizontal line, that is a negative 4. So I put negative 4, and then my comma, and then I look on the y value, go straight across to the y, and that's a positive 2. So I write 2 and put my other parenthesis. Now I've got to find the third point, which is in the third quadrant, 1, 2, 3, and I make my parenthesis, and I look for the x value, and the x value here is a negative 2. So I'm going to write negative 2, comma, and then I'm going to come down to the point and go over to the y-axis, and that is a negative 5. So negative 5. Now I'm going to do the fourth point in the fourth quadrant, make my parenthesis. Now on the x-axis, which is always, it's the one that you started with. It's the number line that you first learned about, so it makes sense that it is the first point in the coordinate system. So it is a positive 3, and then on the y-axis, which is the second number line we learned about, so it makes sense it's the second point, you have a negative 2 right across from that dot. So that is a negative 2 right there. And that is how you would write each one of those coordinates. And if I gave you those points in numeric form, you would be able to come and put that dot right there. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to give you a list of points here, and then we're going to plot them. So we have 4, 2, 4, negative 3, and negative 4, negative 3. So first of all, let's talk about what quadrant each one would be in. Positive 4, positive 2 would be in quadrant 1 because you have the positive side of the x-axis and the positive side of the y-axis. So 4, 2. First we find the x, which is 4, and then we find the y, which is 2. So right here where they cross, you have the 4 and you have the 2. And you can draw those little dotted lines right at first to help you find that position. But that is where they are, 4 and 2. That's where those two lines cross. Now we're going to do positive 4, negative 3, which is this one right here. I'm going to go ahead and just label this so we know that we did it. So we got that one done. All right, so let's do the second one. It's positive 4, negative 3. So it's the same 4, but we're going to go down to the negative 3. The negative 3 is right here, and where those two lines cross, that is where our point goes, and that is 4, negative 3. And again, it's positive, negative, because we have the positive side of the x-axis and the negative side of the y-axis. So we did that point. So now we have negative 4, negative 3. So it's going to be the negative side of the x-axis and the negative side of the y-axis. So we are going to be in quadrant 3 because it is negative, negative, right? So we're going to find the negative 4, which is here. And we're just going to go down to the negative 3. Oops, I need to erase. Or actually, I'm just going to move the label here down where it won't be in the way. But I'm going to draw this little line here, and I'm going to find my negative 3. And I'm going to go straight across, and where they cross, where they intersect, that is the point that we need. And that's negative 4, negative 3. And so now we have plotted all of the points that we had. All right, so now, now you should understand how to, first of all, label the points, and then how to mark points that you have been given a label for. Those are two of the things that you needed to do. The last thing, I'm going to change the color one more time. Actually, I think what I'll do is erase. That might be easier. It's thinking, there we go. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to erase all of this. It's cool how I can do that with this software. It's really neat. All right. Let me do this again. I went back just a little too far. I was holding my undo button. All right, so now that we have our system back, I'm going to make a sketch of the rectangular coordinate system. And I'm going to graph the points, which I've already got my sketch of the system. And for these, I really find that it's very helpful to have graph paper. And if you don't have graph paper, you could take a piece of notebook paper, regular filler paper, or actually two pieces. You take one, the one on top, you have normal, just vertical, straight up and down. But then you take a second piece of notebook paper and you rotate it 90 degrees such that you can lay the top piece on it and you can see the lines of the second piece of paper behind it kind of show through so that it makes graph paper through it. Okay, so just lay two pieces together and rotate the bottom one halfway around so that you can see, actually it's a quarter of the way around, so you can see the lines through and they'll make a little graph paper for you. So let's do these points here. We're going to graph the points -3, +2, and I'm not writing them in any specific place, and then +4, -1. All right, so the first point, first of all, I think I'm going to locate these where they go. So positive, negative, and that's going to be in the fourth quadrant because this is where the positive negatives are. And then this one is where it is supposed to be because it's in negative, positive. So -x, +y. So let's find -3, +2. So on the -3 axis, I'm going to just kind of do my little dotted line, just right up like that. And then I'm going to find the +2 on the y, and I'm going to go towards the negative side. And that's where the point crosses. So that's where my point lives, is right there. And then you can just kind of erase, use a pencil and erase your little lines. You don't even need those once you're done, right? But you can use them to help you get started. Now here I have a positive, negative, so it's going to be in this quadrant. So I know when I draw my line on the 4, it's supposed to go down. And the -1 is that first line. So where they cross, that's where I put my point. And that's +4, -1. Okay? All right, so on the same, I'm going to erase my little lines because I don't really need those now, right? On the same system, I'm going to draw a rectangle using 4 points that I'm given. And I'm going to use the green to do that. And the 4 points that I'm given are -2, -3, 4, 2, 4, -3, and -2, 2. All right, so let's plot those points and see if we can draw a rectangle. So first we want to have -2, -3. That's going to be over here. So -2 is the x. So I'm going to take the -2 down to the -3, which is right here. And I'm going to put in a point. Okay, that's that one. Now let's do +4, +2. So here's +4. There's my little dots. And here's +2. So, all right, so right here is where they would cross. So I've got that point. Now I need positive 4, negative 3. So positive 4 again, but now it's down into the negative side of the y-axis. And here's the negative 3. And that's where they would meet, is right there. And then finally, negative 2, positive 2. So here's the negative 2 on the x-axis. And I'm going to go up because positive 2 is where I'm going, and that is right here. So there are my 4 points. Now I'm just going to draw a solid line from point to point, and I am going to create a rectangle as a result. And there we go. I have a rectangle drawn with 4 points on the Cartesian coordinate system at that point and that point also. And that is all we have for this lesson. Well, one more point, one more step. This also says that we need to find the perimeter and the area of this rectangle. I'm sorry about that. That was later on in the instructions. So after we draw the rectangle, we're supposed to find its perimeter and area. Okay, so to find the perimeter, it's really not that hard. All we need to do is to count the number of squares that we have. So let's do that now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this side is 6. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this side is 5. So that means because they're straight up and down, they are square. This side is also 6, and this side is also 5. So my perimeter is going to equal 6 plus 6 plus 5 plus 5. Well, we know 6 plus 6 is 12, and 5 plus 5 is 10. So that's going to be 12 plus 10 is equal to 22 units. That's the perimeter. My area is going to be my base times my height, or my length times my width, however you want to do it. Well, that's 6 and 5. So that's going to be 6 times 5, which is equal to 30 units. We don't know what the unit of measure is. We're just going to say units. And this is also an easy way to check your multiplication and to check the area. You can count these. So you could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. There are 30 squares, or 30 square units. Remember, we have to put that exponent on there. All right, so that's all we have, finally, for lesson 38. Yes, lesson 38. And so I will see you in lesson 39. If you have any questions about this lesson or any other lesson, please feel free to ask. I'm very happy to help. Do not hesitate to message me.